This tree has more rights than I do. If you hit me, you might get arrested. You might not even get arrested, but so long as you've never been in trouble before and you don't actually hurt me, you would probably only get a police caution. But this tree, that's a whole nother matter. This tree is protected. It's got rights. If you cut it, lop it, top it, uproot it, damage it, or destroy it, you face prosecution. This tree is protected above and below the ground by a tree preservation order. This tree is protected by Part 8 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 and the Town and Country Planning Act Tree Preservation England Regulations 2012 and by Section 192 of the Planning Act 2008 and by Part 6 of the Localism Act 2011 and maybe even the Forestry Act of 1967. And the Tree Preservation Order Regulations, of course, as well. If you are the owner of this tree, you can't do anything without the written consent of your local authority. And even then, even if you have the written consent of the local authority, the Secretary of State himself can still step in and stop you. You are responsible for maintaining it, and they're going to check up on you regularly. You need to maintain and enhance the amenity provided by the tree. You'll be expected to get top-notch advice, and qualified tree doctors, well, they ain't cheap. You have to keep that tree happy and healthy. You've got to keep an eye on it, and you've got to keep it safe. Your local planning authority can simply waltz onto your property whenever they feel like it to carry out an inspection, to check you're looking after the tree. You can't stop them. If you try, you face a fine of up to £1,000. Under Section 66 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, they have a statutory power to search you, your car, your home, and to detain you, arrest you, question you, take your photograph, your fingerprints, and your DNA, and to seize your property. The local authority is judge and jury. They can impose a tree preservation order at will. If you want to do anything to this tree, you need planning permission. Even if the tree is diseased or dying, you need written permission. If that permission is refused, then you can appeal to the planning inspectorate, but you'll need to pay for your own solicitor and an arboriculturalist, and tree doctors don't come cheap. Oh, and once the tree preservation order is in place, don't forget to read the 112 pages of guidance. If you want to appeal, there are 30 pages of guidance and 8 pages of preservation order appeal forms for you to fill in as well. It's expensive and time consuming. You could end up in a full-blown inquiry, even a public hearing. If you lose, you can wind up paying everybody else's costs as well as your own. And don't forget to read the 12 pages of guidance notes before filling in form J1915 form 031 England. God forbid, there is a protected bird up there, or a bat, or an animal in that tree, because then you'll need to worry about the Conservation of Habitats and Species Regulations 2010, the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, the Animal Welfare Act 2006, and the Protection Against Badgers Act 1992. Oh, and you might need to apply to the Forestry Commission as well. Even if you get permission to, I don't know, cut down a dead branch, that dead branch is still protected by the legislation. And don't mess it up. If you damage or carry out any work on a tree protected by a tree preservation order without getting permission from the local planning authority, you are guilty of an offence. It's a crime. You will be a convicted criminal. If you employ anyone to do the work, or anyone helps you, they're guilty of aiding and abetting under Section 44 of the Magistrates Court Act 1980. Under section 210(4) of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990, the maximum fine is £2,500. But under section 210(2), the maximum fine is £20,000. But that's at the magistrate's court. If you wind up in the Crown Court, the fee is unlimited. Let's imagine you've said to hell with it, I'll just pay the fines. It's my garden, I'm chopping the tree down. Well, on top of the fines, the court fees, the tree expert fees, and tree doctors don't come cheap, and the solicitor's fees and the barrister's fees, you will still have a duty under section 207 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 to replace the tree with a tree of the very same species in the very same spot, putting you all the way back at square one, as the replacement tree is automatically protected by the original tree preservation order. And if you don't replace it, then your local authority can march onto your land, plant a tree for you, and get you to pay for it. You can appeal, but don't forget to read the 25-page tree replacement notice guide before filling out the 6-page tree replacement notice appeal form specified in statutory instrument number 605. So why is this tree protected? This is Adrian's tree. It's in his back garden. It is subject to a tree protection order. It's a common oak. It's not rare in the slightest. Pedunculate oak, Quercus robur, they're common throughout Europe. The English oak is very common. It's our national tree. We have loads of them. This one isn't even very tall, not tall at all. Oaks can grow up to 40 meters high, but this tree is fat. It has a waistline of around 9.5 to 10 meters. That's big. And it's old, really old fat oak trees are rare. In England, we have maybe 115 oaks as fat as this one. That's more than the rest of the world put together. You see, no one's entirely sure how many we have. The Woodland Trust and Oxford University are actively right now looking for them. They make public appeals. Have you seen a big fat oak tree? If so, call this number now, toll free. In Harvard, we have a bunch of them. I was going to make this video in the park at Hatfield House. They have 5 or 6 big fat oaks, famous ones too, with names. There's the Elizabeth oak, and an oak that Winston Churchill loved, and there's one called Stumpy, Old Stumpy, and then there's the Pan's Hanger oak. I nearly went to Norfolk to film this in front of the country's oldest tree, but then I remembered my mate Adrian has an oak tree in his back garden, so I called him. This tree is, of course, subject to a tree preservation order. The local council knows it's here and it gets inspected regularly. Now look, I've checked. This tree isn't registered. It's not on the Woodland Trust database. It's not on the Oxford University database. They have no idea it exists. It's not on any database that I can find. As far as I can tell, it's never been photographed. It's not in any of the books. It's not online. It's never been filmed. So this is an exclusive look at Adrian's tree. And look. This house was built in 1752. This painting is from 1830. The house is 300 years old. The painting is 200 years old. And look. There's our oak tree. Trees this old have hollow trunks, so you can't count rings. It's very hard to be sure of an exact age. Do you know, I've never seen in here, because I never thought to bring a flashlight in. Oh wow! Look how huge it is. Oh God, it's disgusting in here. I'm standing. You could stand on my shoulders inside the tree.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that.
You could though.
Is that
a bit of a smile?
No, I'm leaving.
You're leaving? Why? Spiders! But tree experts are pretty good at this stuff. Adrian paid a tree doctor to come and have a look at it when he bought the house. And that expert said, this tree is 1,000 years old. Give or take 200 years, but who's counting? That makes this tree the oldest oak in England. This tree is, I think, older than any tree in Hertford. I genuinely think we've found the oldest oak tree in England. And nobody knows it's here. Just you, me, and Adrian. Adrian's tree is older than the house. It's older than the gardens. It's older than the local church. This tree was here before Hertford Castle was built. And that's old. Just think about that for a moment. When this tree was a mere sapling, the lighthouse of Alexandria was still standing. That's the Middle Ages in Europe, the Dark Ages. In the Muslim world, it was the Golden Age. Over in Cambodia, the Khmer Empire was at its height. Oxford University didn't even exist, but then the United Kingdom of Great Britain didn't exist either. Christians were fighting and losing the Crusades against the armies of Saladin. Over in South America, there were Mayan and Aztec and Inca empires with cities of 300,000 people. In North America, there were maybe 500 or 600 tribes and 30 million bison roaming the plains. This tree stood here before we in Europe even knew America existed. This tree stood here before Genghis Khan was born and was quietly standing here while the Mongol Empire rose and fell. It was here before Magna Carta was signed. This tree is older than our democracy. It's older than our country. The world's oldest oak is in California, and it's maybe 2,000 years old. So this tree is only halfway through its life. It could be here for another millennia. So yes, this tree has more rights than I do. If you punch me in the face, you'll get a telling off. If you dare damage this tree, you will be in a world of trouble. Adrian puts it best. Adrian puts it best. He says, I can't even fart near that bloody tree.